Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 298 of The Pulp Writer Show. My name is Jonathan Moeller. Today is April the 10th, 2026, and today I'm doing an FAQ about my experiences with STARFIELD, which is my favorite game of the 2020s. Before that, we will have Coupon of the Week and a progress update on my current writing, publishing, and audiobook projects. So let's start off with Coupon of the Week. This week's coupon code will get you 50% off the audiobook of Half-Orc Paladin, book number 3 in the Half-Elven Thief series, as excellently narrated by Leanne Woodward at my PayHip store. And that coupon code will be Hector50, Hector50. And as always, the coupon code and the link to my PayHip store will be available in the show notes for this episode. And this coupon code will be valid through April 20th, 2026. So if you need a new audiobook for this spring, we have got you covered. For an update on my current writing, publishing, and audiobook projects. As of this recording, I am done with the first pass of editing through Blade of Wraiths, and I'm starting on the second. It's taken a bit longer than I wanted because I've had a lot of real-life stuff to do, but if all goes well, I'm hoping to have the book out in the second half of April, so hopefully not too much longer now. I'm also 19,000 words into Dragon Mage, which will be the 6th book in the Riva Half-Elven Thief series, and hopefully that will be out in May if all goes well. Though that might slip to June, but I'm really hoping to get that one out in May. In audiobook news, Hollis McCarthy has started work on Cloak of Illusion, so hopefully if all goes well, we'll have that out to you in May sometime. So, in fact, I'm hoping that will come out concurrently with Dragon Mage, because it's always nice when I can stack an ebook and a older audiobook in the series like that together. So that is where we're at with my current writing, publishing, and audiobook projects. Now on to our main topic. This is ostensibly a podcast about writing and the business writing, but I like video games, so we're going to talk about a video game this week. And the reason for that is whenever I post about STARFIELD or share a screenshot from it, I frequently get a number of questions. I think it's because STARFIELD was an oddly divisive game when it came out. People have strong opinions about it, and then have strong opinions about other people's strong opinions. And I do not have these strong opinions myself. While I enjoy the game a great deal, if you don't like it, that's fine. And there are lots and lots and lots of legitimate reasons to criticize Microsoft, which is the ultimate owner of STARFIELD. It's possible for two things to be simultaneously true, that Microsoft has done a lot of sketchy things, and that STARFIELD is a good game that I enjoyed. I suspect it's a bit like enjoying a football game, while at the same time knowing that the NFL is an unscrupulous cartel that could benefit from some thorough reforms. Despite that, I have to admit that I don't think it's super healthy to make gaming opinions, whether video games or sports games, a core part of your identity. A game, in the end, is just a fancy toy for amusement in idle moments, and if God descended tomorrow and told me that STARFIELD would vanish from the face of the earth, I'd be rather disappointed, but my dinner would still taste just as good, and my house would be just as warm. That said, I did enjoy the game quite a bit. Everybody needs a hobby, and even I can't work every hour of every day, and I wrote like 100 novels in the last 10 years. Everyone has their own stresses in life, of course, but we seem to live in a particularly stressful time these days, so a harmless hobby is a nice break from real life. The game's newest expansion came out a couple days ago on April 7th, and so with that in mind, I thought I would answer the most common questions I get whenever I post or talk about STARFIELD. Question: did STARFIELD influence your Silent Order science fiction series at all? No. But I'm always pleased when I get this question because it's easily answered. The final book of Silent Order came out on September the 4th, 2023, and STARFIELD came out on September 6th, 2023. I tried STARFIELD like the day after it came out, but I didn't actually start playing it in earnest until April of 2024. Like I didn't actually finish the starter dungeon until April of 2024. So no, STARFIELD was not an influence on Silent Order. It would be fair to say that Silent Order was more influenced by James Bond, some H.P. Lovecraft, and Wing Commander Privateer, which is actually our next question. Question: what initially drew your interest to STARFIELD? Part of the game reminded me a lot of Wing Commander Privateer from the 90s, which was one of my favorite games back in the day. If you're not familiar with it, Wing Commander Privateer was what's now called a space trading sim set in the Wing Commander universe. In all the previous Wing Commander games, you played as a starfighter pilot fighting in the humans' war against the cat-like Kilrathi invaders. Your missions were assigned to you, along with the specific ship you would fly for that mission. But in Privateer, you played a freelance captain with a rundown freighter. You can carry cargo, go bounty hunting, do mercenary work, trading, and just wander around the map following infinite procedurally generated missions from the Mission Board, the Merchants Guild, and the Mercenaries Guild. Eventually, you would have enough cash to upgrade your rundown ship to something better and configure it however you liked. There's a main plot, but you can totally ignore it and do whatever you want. I loved Privateer, and I finished both it and the expansion, and of course spent a lot of time doing the infinite procedurally generated quests. STARFIELD does the same thing, but with 30 years of advancement worth of game design and technology improvements. In grand Bethesda game tradition, you don't even have to do any of the main plotlines. You can just wander around doing procedurally generated quests. It's like Privateer, but better, and with ground-based quests as well. You can get out of your ship and walk around in a way you couldn't in Privateer. In STARFIELD, you can land at some random science outpost or industrial outpost, and the inhabitants will have a quest for you. I've heard STARFIELD described as a cozy game, since quite a few people enjoy just building their outposts and their ships, and then decorating them like the science fiction version of Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley. In another sense, I suppose STARFIELD could be described as cozy adventure. Granted, that might be a strange thing to say about missions where you machine gun space pirates, blow up their base, and then loot all their stuff, but STARFIELD is an excellent game for just puttering around. It's fun after a long day to play for an hour, take out some space pirates, upgrade your ship a little, maybe tinker with your outpost. And I do like, I have to admit, the main plotline and the various faction quests. Question: so the procedural generation stuff doesn't bother you? No. Procedural generation has been part of gaming forever, and long before the civilizational blight that is modern LLM systems. Certainly there are points where the procedural generation STARFIELD could be improved, and it has been improved with patches, but I enjoy the randomness of it. Question: if you think STARFIELD is good, why did it have such mixed reviews? It did have some rough points at launch, like the lack of surface vehicles, the lack of city maps, and some weird choices for inventory management among some other issues, though those were later patched or upgraded. I honestly think the game is better than the mixed reviews would indicate, and I also think the mixed reviews were a combination of different converging social factors. Specifically, people's expectations of what they imagined the game would be versus what it actually was, its Xbox and PC exclusivity, and the unfortunate addiction to outrage culture in social media. As I mentioned before, I think it's obvious that we live in stressful times, and for a variety of reasons that are beyond the scope of this episode, I think people are overall angrier and eager to lash out when a target presents itself, especially online. Additionally, I suspect a big part of the mixed reviews is that Microsoft has built up a lot of ill will since the launch of Windows 11 and Copilot, and STARFIELD is a convenient outlet for that. Like Outlook and Teams are widely hated software tools, probably some of the most hated software tools in the world, but your job forces you to use them and you can't do anything about it. It's more effective to criticize a consumer-facing business like video games than it is Outlook and Teams, since those tend to be sold in blocks of thousands of licenses to large institutional customers that don't particularly care what their employees think about Outlook or Teams. In fact, fun fact, while I was writing this episode, Outlook was causing problems on Artemis 2, NASA's first manned mission to the moon in over 50 years. So there is yet another historical milestone for Outlook. Question: you've said repeatedly that you don't like multiverse stuff, yet STARFIELD's main plot revolves heavily around the multiverse. That's true. I don't really like multiverse stuff in fiction because it's hard to execute well without making the story pointless. If there are a billion parallel universes and somebody dies in one of them, so what? Just hop over one universe and find a new version of the dead guy. Multiverse and parallel universe plotlines are a bit like homemade lasagna or homemade spaghetti carbonara. It needs to be done by someone who really, really knows what they're doing. Otherwise, the end result is sad and unpleasant, indigestible, or outright disgusting. That said, multiverse as a game mechanic is actually a clever idea. Like, we all know that if you really like a game, you're going to play it more than once. How many times have you replayed Skyrim? How many uncounted quintillions of times has the original Super Mario Bros. Been replayed? STARFIELD rather cleverly builds that replaying into the game. You can start over in a new universe and play the game again, but this time your character has in-game foreknowledge of everything that's going to happen, and that can affect the gameplay in fun ways. Question: did you really lose 40 pounds while playing STARFIELD? Yes. Of course, the main factor was some lifestyle changes in terms of exercise and diet, but I did lose 40 pounds since starting to seriously play STARFIELD in April of 2024. The game was an excellent distraction instead of late-night snacking, so I suppose I sublimated the snacking urge into blowing up space pirates. Question: aren't you worried STARFIELD will influence or slow down your writing? Well, writers and other creatives draw inspiration from all sorts of places, but no, I'm not worried about that because STARFIELD draws so heavily on multiverse tropes, and as I've mentioned a few times before, I don't really like multiverse stuff in fiction. In terms of productivity, I published 1 million new words in 2024 and again in 2025. Though, in full disclosure, I will be surprised if I hit 1 million words in 2026 due to the amount of real-life stuff I will have to do this year. But admittedly, that is real life stuff unconnected to gaming or recreation. And it's only April, so who can say how the rest of the year will play out? Question: did playing Starfield so much take time away from reading? Probably not. In 2025, I read 69 books, and by the end of March in 2026, I have read 15. Lots of people read more than I do, but 69 books in a year is still significantly higher than the American national average. In all honesty, I both read less and play fewer video games now than I did like 25 years ago when I had way fewer responsibilities. Question: the expansion pack Shattered Space got mixed reviews, but you really enjoyed it. Why? I thought the concept was intriguing. A religious leader builds a machine to contact his conception of God and accidentally blows up half his capital city and creates space-time rift is an interesting concept for both a game and for fiction. I also liked how the expansion pack went in-depth into the crazy space cultist home planet, which was an fun environment to play. Shattered Space is definitely Starfield on hard mode, though. The game recommends it for level 35 characters, but I think 50 might be better, if I'm honest. Question: if Starfield was a commercial failure, why do you play it? Well, commercial success and I enjoyed this don't necessarily overlap on the Venn diagram, do they? Just because something is popular doesn't mean it is good, and just because something is unpopular doesn't mean it is bad. That said, I don't think it's objectively correct to say Starfield was a commercial failure, regardless of one's opinion of the game. Microsoft is a ruthless corporate empire that has absolutely no qualms about cutting things that are liabilities, especially as more and more of its resources go into Copilot and LLM slop, though there are some indications that its AI focus is starting to loosen as reality begins to impose itself on the grand delusion of the AI-powered future. Considering that in the 2.5 years since Starfield came out, it's received a lot of patches, a lot of new free content, and 2 paid expansions, it's clear that the lidless eye of Microsoft has not turned towards Starfield in fiery wrath, especially since Microsoft laid off lots of people and shut down a bunch of its game studios during that time. People tend to focus on Steam rankings, but that's only a segment, if a very large segment, of the market. Various Starfield devs and interviewers have said that the game is in the top 10 for played hours on Xbox Game Pass. And Xbox Game Pass is really important to Microsoft, probably more important than the physical Xbox itself. So I don't think it's objectively true that Starfield is a commercial failure, though it definitely wasn't as successful as Skyrim or Fallout 4. Question: Baldur's Gate 3 came out at about the same time as Starfield. Did you like Starfield better than Baldur's Gate 3? Yes. Question: what? Why? Everyone knows Baldur's Gate 3 is the better game. Baldur's Gate 3 is an excellent game. Well written, well designed, excellent voice acting, the works. That said, I also think Starfield is an excellent game, and I just enjoyed it more. It's a matter of taste, I think, which is not quantifiable. BG3 is a big Larian/BioWare-style narrative RPG, which is kind of its own genre in the same way that a Bethesda RPG is also its own genre. I mentioned above that I enjoy the puttering around aspect of Starfield a great deal, and BG3 doesn't offer as much space for that kind of puttering. Some, but not nearly as much. I have enjoyed that style of narrative RPG in the past. Dragon Age Origins and Knights of the Old Republic were both excellent games I played back-to-back in 2009 or maybe 2008, back when I had more time for that kind of thing, and I think they qualify as direct predecessors to Baldur's Gate 3. But these days, I like the freedom of puttering more, even if a game like BG3 offers an excellent interactive narrative. Additionally, I admit I got frustrated a lot with BG3 in a way I didn't with Starfield. In Baldur's Gate 3, I kept frequently running into total party kill situations, which is exasperating after you sunk 20 or 30 minutes into a complicated combat encounter. So I think it's objectively and quantifiably true to say that Baldur's Gate 3 is significantly more popular than Starfield, but on the subjective level, I just enjoy Starfield more. Question: do you like the soundtrack of Starfield? Oh yeah, it's some of my favorite writing music. For fun, go search on YouTube and watch the London Symphony Orchestra's concert of the Starfield soundtrack. The composer Inan Zur gets to conduct some of it. I'd say my favorite tracks are Into the Starfield, New Atlantis, The Safety of the Citizens, Freestar, The New Old Frontier. I think that plays in the Trackers Alliance headquarters. Sidonia, Sublevels, Neon, and in Silent Orbit. The battle music when you fight the Starborn is pretty great as well. I think it's called Stars and Sacrifice, but I'm not 100% sure. I also quite like the soundtrack for Baldur's Gate 3 as well. To return to an earlier question, Andrew Wincott totally deserved the BAFTA for Raphael's final act. Question: if a Switch 2 port comes along of Starfield, will you buy it? I would wait for reviews, but honestly, I would be amazed if there was a Switch 2 port of STARFIELD. The Switch 2 is more powerful than its predecessor, but there's no denying that STARFIELD is a chunky game. Then again, I wouldn't have thought it was possible to get Cyberpunk 2077, Witcher 3, or Fallout 4 on the Switch, and apparently those are good ports, so I guess we'll see. Question: favorite quest in STARFIELD? The Mantis, Ground Pounder, and the entire thing with the Terramorphs. Also, that whole freaky quest with the Crucible and the clones. That was some great 70s style science fiction stuff. I enjoy any of the quests with Walter Stroud because he's a fun character, and also voiced by the actor who played Quark in Deep Space Nine back in the 90s when I was playing Privateer. Full circle moment. Also, fighting the Hunter for the last time is pretty great since he's a smug Nishian jerk. One of the greatest moments in the game is how the Hunter is just chilling in a spaceport bar and willing to have amiable conversations with you at the start of the game, since he's killed alternate versions of you thousands of times before and isn't expecting trouble, so no reason not to have a civil chat over a drink. I also played through the new Trackers Alliance plotline. If you get the premium edition of STARFIELD and its bonus 1,000 creation credits, I highly recommend you use them on the Trackers Alliance expansion. It is a lot of fun. Question: favorite ship in the game? The Razor Leaf and the Ecliptic Claymore. Also, this is a new addition, but I really like the Orchid you pick up from the fake Mantis quest in the Trackers Alliance questline. I think my favorite overall ship is the Shield Breaker that you can buy on New Atlantis. But if you're going to buy a ship instead of stealing it, I think Walter's company Stroud Eklund, see above, has the best ships. Honestly, one of my favorite activities in STARFIELD is stealing ships from space pirates. It's always so much fun. Question: favorite gun? The Magstorm, hands down. Peace through superior firepower. The Magstorm is what I used for the final battle with the Hunter and then again for the final mission of Shattered Space. For stealth, the hard target with a suppressor and a scope. I've taken out entire pirate bases with the hard target in stealth mode. The one Starborn lady who sells stuff to you in new universes has a really excellent stealth optimized version of the hard target in her inventory. I also really like the Urban Eagle pistol you get early in the Vanguard plotline, since it's usually the best gun in the game I've found to that point. Conclusion. I hope that explains why I enjoy STARFIELD and answers some of the questions people always seem to have whenever I mention it. I doubt anyone involved with STARFIELD will ever listen to this, but I would like to thank everyone who has worked on the game in any capacity. Devs, artists, writers, composers, Q&A people, everyone. Thank you for all your hard work, which has given me a lot of enjoyment and mental escape during some very stressful times. So that's it for this week. I promise we will go back to writing-related topics next week. Thank you for listening to the Pulp Writer Show. I hope you found the show useful. A reminder that you can listen to all the back episodes on https://thepulpwritershow.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review on your podcasting platform of choice. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you all next week.